So rumours abound that Prince Andrew is to write a tell-all autobiography. Your reaction, Mark, at GBNews.uk. Let's get the view of top royal biographer, best-selling author and historian Tom Bower. Hi, Tom.
Good evening.
First of all, if he does write this book, will it sell?
Well, it depends what he says. If he does the same as Harry and pours scorn on his family and on the king, it will sell because there'll be enormous interest in his sludge. I mean, in the end, it depends how deep he wants to go into his own past. If it's just a book about saying I'm innocent, clearly not. But I think that he has looked across at Harry, who has sold, 3-4 million books and made a huge amount of money, and encouraged by his ex-wife Fergie, thinks I should do the same. The trouble with Andrew is he's a fantasist, and not only that, he's insensitive to his plight. He really does believe that he's innocent. He can't believe that what people think about him. He's so arrogant that he's immune to it all, and he feels also he's got a grievance, and the grievance is that when he bought the house, he sold the house and moved into the lodge. He used the money from the sale of the house to the Kazakhs to refurbish the lodge in Windsor Park. He also was given a 78-year lease, and he doesn't see why he should be forced out of the house when he's legally the owner, or the occupant anyway. And that's the problem. He's a man on a mission to get his revenge against his brother.
Now, of course, Andrew has had a longer life than Prince Harry and has seen more goings-on within royal circles. So potentially a Prince Andrew book could be infinitely more damaging than Harry's.
Well, I think so, and it'll be another perspective. I mean, this is all now becoming blackmail. It's not just a book. It's a book with a purpose. And I think that he looks at his brother, the king, and sees that Charles hasn't dealt firmly in suppressing Harry and Meghan. And he thinks if Harry and Meghan can get away with it, then so can I.
What do we know of Andrew and Charles's relationship hitherto?
It's pretty bad. I mean, there's very little to like about Andrew. While Charles worked very hard and had lots of intellectual and other interests and had an agenda for change and all sorts of improvements and sometimes controversy, Andrew just has spent his whole life after leaving the Army Air Force enjoying himself and being very rude to people and being very vulgar and being actually quite obnoxious. And that's the problem. He always thinks that he deserves better and more, but never works to prove why he should be given more. And of course, when he was a trade representative of Britain, traveling around the world, what came out in a whole lot of leaked memoranda and messages and emails was how unbelievably vulgar and rude he was everywhere. And he hasn't done himself any good with his relationship with Fergie, and his daughters have done very little. And he wasted a vast amount of money buying a house in the Swiss Alps, which he was then forced to sell. I mean, he is unfortunately a bit of a catastrophe.
Was he spoiled by the late Queen? Is he a monster of his mother's making?
Well, he's undoubtedly of his mother's making. I think monster is probably a bit too harsh. He is a casualty. He is a person who really needed a good education and some strict upbringing and some guidance to get a proper job. He is a perfect example of why, in the modern age, royals should get a proper job and a proper line of responsibility, just like his sister, Princess Anne, who is an exemplary example of a hard-working royal, as is Charles and as is Edward. The problem with Andrew is that he's never really done anything. He can't do anything. He just indulges himself, and it brings just discredit on the royal family, and is determined to push himself back into the public view. I mean, having been told to retire from public view because he brought such shame on the royal family, he's absolutely determined to ignore those orders, and he's encouraged in that by his wife, ex-wife, unfortunately.
Are we being a little harsh on him, though, Tom? After all, he served in the Falklands. Many would argue, including his friend, the socialite Lady Victoria Hervey, that he's been stitched up by Virginia Giuffre. Perhaps we're giving this guy a bad rap.
Well, Mark, after your introduction, I didn't see any temporalism in your introduction. I mean, I think you got it perfectly right. No, I mean, the Falklands was 30 years ago, and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was absolutely outrageous. I mean, and his interview with on Newsnight just showed how he didn't understand the horror of his conduct. To go back to Epstein's house after Epstein had been convicted and served a sentence for paedophilia wasn't just bad judgment. It was self-indulgent beyond belief. It was that he really is a ligger. He just wants to live off other people, and clearly liked the idea of Epstein introducing him to yet more girls. I mean, he is a disgraceful person. And instead of retiring and disappearing, as he's been asked to do by Charles, he's now clearly doing the exact opposite. And that is Charles's problem. On the one hand, he's got Harry, who is causing endless problems, and on the other, he's got Prince Andrew. As I would say, I mean, it's the madhouse, it looks, in the House of Windsor at the moment, and Charles needs to take a grip, a very firm grip, and he's failing to do that at the moment, because that's the only way in which Andrew will be pushed back into his box.
Tom, a delight to have you on the programme. Tom Bauer, of course, best-selling author. His latest book is all about Meghan Markle. It's a bestseller. Go buy it and find out why. Thanks, Tom. Your reaction, is there any way back to public life for Prince Andrew? If he writes an autobiography, will you buy it? Will you read it? Well, I believe, Maria, we've got the results in. We put out a text poll before the programme to ask whether you would be interested in a book by Prince Andrew about his life. Will you buy it, was the question. Oh dear, bad news. 93.8% say no, and 6.2% say they might give it a go. There's always hope.